we owned the news. We were the
entire journalism industry is basically in a free fall. Today, the Los Angeles Times laid off 115 employees. They wiped out their entire DC bureau in an election year. They laid off pretty much all of their sports teams. They killed their entire tech and business section. They laid off breaking news writers, social media editors. The list goes on. But what's really dark is this is just the latest in months and months and months of layoffs in the media industry. In fact, tens of thousands of journalists have been laid off in the past year. Major media companies like BuzzFeed News have completely shuttered their news operations. Time magazine also just laid off a ton of people, and Sports Illustrated basically shut down last week. Pretty much the entire digital media ecosystem that myself and a lot of other millennial journalists came up in has been completely hollowed out. And it's not just digital media sites. Local news has been obliterated. The newspaper industry is cratering. Radio is essentially dead aside from NPR, which has been gutted. Meanwhile, hundreds of workers at Condé Nast, the parent company of pretty much every major magazine from GQ to Vogue to The New Yorker to
Yes, I knew there is coming a time like this. The mainstream media is collapsing, and we can see it clearly. At the World Economic Forum, they said they own the news. Now, independent creators have crumbled these people. When you take a look at this article, Taylor Lorenz is panicked about the total collapse of mainstream media and mass layoff across the industry. This should clearly tell you one thing: a lot of people don't trust the mainstream media. Reason you can experience what is going on: they are not having money again. Ask yourself, why are they putting out a lot of people, jobless? Some say they want to bring in artificial intelligence to replace those people, but that is a lie. We have seen in recent years how they are collapsing gradually.
If you go back really not that long ago, as I say, we owned the news. We were the gatekeepers, and we very much owned the facts as well. If it said it in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, then that was a fact. Nowadays, people can go to all sorts of different sources for the news, and they're much more questioning about what we're saying. So it's no longer good enough for us just to say, this is what happened, or this is the news. We have to explain our working. So readers expect to understand how we source stories. They want to know how we go about getting stories. We have to sort of lift the bonnet, as it were, and in a way that newspapers aren't used to doing, and explain to people what we're doing. We need to be much more transparent about how we go about collecting.
This is the death of the mainstream media. And I believe that in few years to come, some of these people will not even exist. I have a lot of videos to look deep into. If you have not subscribed, please endeavor to do that. And if possible, please share this video.
In fact, tens of thousands of journalists have been laid off in the past year. Major media companies like BuzzFeed News have completely shuttered their news operations. Time magazine also just laid off a ton of people, and Sports Illustrated basically shut down last week. Pretty much the entire digital media ecosystem that myself and a lot of other millennial journalists came up in has been completely hollowed out. And it's not just digital media sites. Local news has been obliterated. The newspaper industry is cratering. Radio is essentially dead aside from NPR, which has been gutted. Meanwhile, hundreds of workers at Condé Nast, the parent company of pretty much every major magazine from GQ to Vogue to The New Yorker to Vanity Fair, are on strike because they're also facing impending layoffs. Even mainstream national media outlets owned by billionaires like the Washington Post, where I work, and The Atlantic, where I used to work, have done layoffs. If you're a young journalist today, there's almost no on-ramp to traditional journalism. Even if you do get a job, journalists' salaries have been stagnant and even declined. And by the way, we don't make that much to begin with. I don't think people understand how bad the world would be without journalists. And let me just preface this by saying, for people that don't know my background, I did not go to journalism school. I built my own audience on the internet. I came from outside journalism and started as a blogger, and then entered into legacy journalism, a system that I have been incredibly critical of pretty much my entire career. So I'm definitely not some mainstream media defender. And I think the rise of citizen journalism on apps like TikTok, Instagram, and elsewhere has overwhelmingly been a positive thing. The journalism industry is overrun with elite, underqualified, rich, entitled Nepo babies, okay? And that part of it is terrible. But that's not most journalists, and the majority of journalists losing their jobs in situations like this are the working journalists that are doing these investigations of police brutality or investigating corporations or holding power to account or doing really thoughtful, brilliant cultural commentary. I don't want to live in a world where all of the news is delivered through 60-second TikTok videos with retention editing. And I think there's a ton of really talented journalists that are also just not great like social media people. I think of some of my friends who are journalists who do really deep investigations or local reporting or sit through hour-long city council meetings to, hold some local politician to account. That's really important work, and it's work that somebody should pay for, and it's work that's not rewarded by these social media algorithms. I would love if everyone could become independent journalists, but the economics are just not there. It's really, really hard to amass a subscriber base and then retain that subscriber base over time when you're doing investigative work. And that's if you don't get sued out of existence, by the way, after you publish the first critical story of a billionaire. And I will admit, a lot of these traditional media companies have accelerated their own demise. They ignored the internet for years. They're condescending to content creators and people outside their mainstream ecosystem. They constantly kowtow to corporate and political power. They have these false and deluded notions of objectivity, which, by the way, doesn't exist. And they push a lot of really racist, sexist, regressive crap. But that's not even why a lot of them are going out of business.
Yes, there is something with this lady. Taylor Lorenz says you can't be a successful independent journalist. Maybe she can be because she has no talent, but I investigate billionaires and politicians every day, and I have managed to make it work. She said as soon as you publish your first critical article about a billionaire, you will not have success. Even after being banned everywhere by billionaire tech executives, I fought back and found a way to keep doing what I love doing. Investigative reporting. Maybe that is why she spent so many years trying to get independent journalists banned on social media side. Taylor Loren is jealous of people who accomplish what she isn't capable of doing. Okay, this is someone replying to Taylor Lorenz. We have seen what she has done in the past, advocating people should be banned on social media. Now coming to do this should clearly tell you her mindset. Just being honest, people have to trust you, and as she has shown, she isn't a trustworthy person. Also, nobody wants to read content about how she skipped her holiday celebration because she's so scared of getting caught. Nobody wants to read the garbage, let alone pay for it. That is exactly what is going on with the mainstream media. People are not ready to read out of their insane articles. If you notice, I report videos here not coming from the mainstream media, mostly TikTok videos, actually speaking the truth on certain events. I want to quote example. I reported the Maui fire correctly simply because I didn't follow the mainstream media narrative. If you do like this, tell me how you cannot make it. If you follow the mainstream media reporting, it means you need to counteract everything they are saying. Yeah, because their narrative always goes to a way we don't want.
Invite-only event. So, you have to be somebody just to get through the door. And if you're in, guests are slapped with wristbands and divided by class.
My spirit name is Ozawa Makwa, which means brown bear in Ojibwe. My father is Algonquin Métis and Irish. My mother is African Jamaican and Indigenous Jamaican. So I get to bring these intersections and these lenses to my work.
And coming as a white man of advanced age from a continental European background.
Inclusion is about see me and hear me and make space for me.
And so we should all be doing this because you can make a profit. Inclusion is profitable.
It's laughable that you would, or anyone would describe Davos as protecting liberal democracy.
You had the World Economic Forum in Davos just playing out in the last week or so, right? Yeah. That old world vision is rearing its head again that says the people cannot be trusted to self-govern. They'll ruin themselves, right?
Businesses, hostile takeovers. They like to be around the guys who influence foreign governments.